Hello, and welcome to our podcast episode. Today, we will explore an ancient story. Its echoes still resonate powerfully in our lives. What does the account of the Magi tell us about our choices, our fears, our expectations, or our relationship with God? We are not just recounting a past event. This encounter highlights a human experience that is still very relevant, the search and discovery. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. We are at the beginning of Matthew's Gospel. This is just after Jesus' birth in Bethlehem. This narrative is part of the chapters dedicated to Christ's childhood. These are foundational moments. The main characters are the Magi, wise men from the east. They likely came from Persia or Mesopotamia. They were guided by a star, a celestial sign. They interpreted it as announcing the birth of a king. Their destination was Jerusalem, the center of Jewish power. There, they logically expected to find this new king. But their quest would confront them with a very different reality. It brought unexpected tension. Matthew's Gospel begins. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judæa in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. Matthew 2 verses 1-2. These Magi undertook a long and perilous journey. They were motivated by a sign and a deep conviction. They were not seeking a throne or earthly glory. They sought a king to worship. Their arrival in Jerusalem caused great commotion. Verse 3 tells us, When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Herod, a paranoid and cruel king, saw this child as a threat to his power. This news sowed unrest not only in him, but also among the capital's inhabitants. Herod then consulted the chief priests and scribes. They confirmed to him, according to the prophecies, that Christ was to be born in Bethlehem of Judæa. King Herod, cunning, secretly summoned the wise men. He asked them the exact time the star appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem with a false intention. Go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. Matthew 2 verse 8. The wise men, after hearing the king, resumed their journey. And then a miracle occurred. And, lo, the star, which they saw in the east, went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. Matthew 2 verse 9. Imagine their immense joy. Verse 10 emphasizes, When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. This was the decisive moment of their quest. It was the culmination of their long journey. They entered the house and found the child Jesus with Mary, his mother. They fell down and worshipped him. They offered their precious gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These gifts were not insignificant. Gold symbolizes royalty. Frankincense represents divinity. And myrrh, used for embalming, foreshadows his death and resurrection. After this profound encounter, the wise men were divinely warned in a dream. They were not to return to Herod. They went back to their own country by another way. This narrative reveals several contrasts. On one side, the faith and perseverance of the wise men. They were ready to leave everything for a sign. On the other, Herod's fear and cruelty. He was blinded by his power. There is also the Magi's faithfulness to the divine call. This contrasts with Herod's flight from the truth. It is generous giving versus the refusal to acknowledge God's newness. The decisive moment, of course, is the Magi's arrival before the child. At that instant, they risked their lives. They implicitly disobeyed Herod, but they discovered the humble and divine nature of the Messiah. And through that, a truth about God and about themselves. Their lives were transformed by this encounter. This episode shows us how God draws near, not in the splendor of palaces, but in the simplicity of a home. He calls ordinary people, even strangers, to recognize his presence. The human core of this narrative is the desire for truth. This drove the wise men to adventure. It is also Herod's fear. This led him to cunning and violence. On the spiritual axis, the star is a sign of divine providence. God guides those who seek him, even if they do not yet know him. Finally, on the biblical axis, this narrative fulfills Old Testament prophecies. It announces that salvation is for all peoples, not just for Israel. The story of the Magi invites us to ask ourselves, what signs does God place on our path today? Are we attentive to the calls, sometimes subtle, that can transform our ordinary lives? Perhaps there is a comparable situation in our lives. A move to make, a decision to take, a fear to overcome. I invite you to name what, within you, requires a decision or a change. Dare to make a simple gesture this week. Let it be inspired by the faith and courage of the wise men. And why not personally reread this passage from Matthew 2 verses 1-12? Let it speak to you. Let it guide you. The story of the Magi reminds us that at the heart of our human decisions, our fragilities, and our upheavals a vaster story continues to unfold. It is the story of God coming to meet us. Lord, open our understanding to your word. Through the story of the Magi, help us recognize our own struggles. Help us welcome your call. Help us move forward with more truth, trust, and faithfulness. Amen. Which aspect of the Magi story most directly connects with what you are experiencing today? Feel free to meditate on this question. Thank you for joining us. If this episode touched you, subscribe so you don't miss the rest of our series on Jesus' childhood. Next week, we will explore another key moment from this foundational period.